The royal decree arrived 3 hours before dawn, sealed with the Luna's bloodmark, and Marguerite knew, even before breaking the wax, that everything was about to shatter. The ceremony for the heir's 3rd birthday would proceed at moonrise. Pack law demanded attendance from every ranked wolf within the Northern Territories. But the toddler, little Basil, heir to the Thornwood throne, had made his own decree that morning. He would not attend unless Clement came. Clement, the Omega who'd been banished 6 months prior under accusations of forbidden bloodline contamination. Clement, whom Marguerite had loved in secret for 2 years before the pack discovered the truth. Before we go deeper into this story of impossible choices and pack politics that could destroy everything, tell me the city you're watching from so I can send you a hug. You're going to need it. Marguerite stood in the Luna's private chamber now, her hands trembling as Adelaide, Luna of the Thornwood pack, bonded to Alpha Remy for 12 years, paced before the ceremonial windows. The morning light caught Adelaide's silver-threaded hair, and her eyes held that dangerous calm that preceded storms. "My son will not be reasoned with," Adelaide said, her voice tight. "He's been crying for 3 hours. He says Clement promised to teach him the old songs. He says Clement is his friend, and friends don't abandon friends." Marguerite felt her throat close. "Luna, Clement didn't abandon anyone. He was exiled. The council. I know what the council did." Adelaide's voice cracked like breaking ice. "I stood there and said nothing while they invoked pack law, while they claimed his bloodline carried the curse of the fallen packs, while they stripped him of rank and sent him beyond our borders with nothing but the clothes on his back." She turned, and Marguerite saw tears tracking down the Luna's face. "I said nothing because I had to protect my position, had to protect Basil's claim to leadership. But my son doesn't understand politics. He only understands that someone he loves is gone." The weight of the moment pressed down like stones. Marguerite had been Basil's caretaker since birth, had rocked him through fever dreams and taught him his first words. She'd also been there the day Clement arrived at the pack house, a traveling Omega with credentials from the Eastern Territories, eyes like winter storms, and a voice that could gentle even the most aggressive wolves. They'd fallen in love slowly, carefully, hiding their bond because Omegas and Betas weren't supposed to pair outside of Alpha-sanctioned arrangements. Then someone had dug into Clement's lineage, found the records that showed his great-grandmother had been from the Shadowfen pack, the pack that had attempted a blood oath rebellion 40 years ago, trying to overthrow the continental pack hierarchy. The pack that had been disbanded, scattered, their bloodlines marked as forbidden. Anyone carrying Shadowfen blood was considered a political risk, a potential insurgent. It hadn't mattered that Clement had no connection to the rebellion, that he'd been born decades after it ended. Pack law was absolute. Forbidden bloodlines could not hold rank or remain within royal territories. Marguerite had watched them drag him from the pack house, had felt her own heart being ripped out as Clement looked back at her with those devastating eyes, mouthing words she couldn't hear over the council's pronouncements. "What do you need from me, Luna?" Marguerite asked quietly. Adelaide turned fully now, her ceremonial robes rustling. "I need you to bring him back." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. That would violate pack law. The council would. The council answers to the Alpha, and Remy has given me discretion in matters concerning our son's well-being. Adelaide moved closer, her scent carrying notes of desperation beneath the formal oils. "Basil refuses to eat, refuses to dress. He's locked himself in the nursery, and he's crying for Clement. If we proceed without resolving this, we show the entire pack that the heir is defiant and unstable, that he rejects pack law at age 3. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They'll use this against him, Marguerite. The council members who oppose Remy's progressive policies, they'll say Basil is unfit, that the Luna's bloodline has made him weak." "So you want me to retrieve an exiled wolf," Marguerite said slowly, "and bring him to a ceremony attended by every ranked member of the Northern Territories, including the council members who exiled him." "I want you to save my son's future," Adelaide said. "Basil needs to see Clement." needs to understand that sometimes we can't have what we want, even when what we want is someone we love. Her eyes locked onto Marguerite's. You understand that, don't you? The blow was precise. Adelaide knew. Of course she knew. Lunas always knew what happened in their territories. She'd known about Marguerite and Clement's bond and had said nothing, allowed it, perhaps even approved of it quietly. But she'd still let the exile happen. How long do I have? Marguerite asked. 10 hours until moonrise. Clement was last seen in the borderlands, near Constance's trading post. The old wolf roads will get you there in 4 hours if you run fast. Adelaide pulled a sealed envelope from her robes. This is a temporary pardon signed by Remy and me. It grants Clement safe passage for exactly 6 hours, long enough to attend the ceremony and speak with Basil. After that, she didn't finish. Didn't need to. Marguerite took the envelope. The paper felt heavy, weighted with impossible promises. What if he refuses to come? Then you convince him. Adelaide's expression softened slightly. You were always good at that. The Luna's chamber door opened, and Remy entered, Alpha of Thornwood, tall and broad-shouldered with grey threading through his dark hair. His presence filled the room with that particular pressure Alphas carried, the weight of dominance and responsibility. Marguerite, he acknowledged with a nod. Adelaide has explained. Yes, Alpha. The council cannot know the real reason for this, Remy said, moving to stand beside his mate. If word spreads that we're reversing an exile for a child's tantrum, we'll appear weak. You'll tell anyone who asks that Clement has information relevant to pack security, that his testimony is needed regarding Eastern Territory movements. His jaw tightened. It's not entirely a lie. There have been concerning reports from the borderlands. Understood. Marguerite folded the envelope carefully and tucked it inside her jacket. Marguerite. Adelaide's voice stopped her at the door. He may not be the same. 6 months in exile changes wolves. Especially Omegas. The warning settled cold in Marguerite's stomach, but she nodded and left. The transformation took her in the courtyard, bones reshaping with familiar pain as she dropped to all fours. Her beta wolf was built for speed and endurance, russet-furred, lean, built for the courier runs she'd done before becoming Basil's caretaker. She grabbed the envelope in her jaws, secured in a waterproof pouch, and ran. The old wolf roads were exactly that. Ancient paths through the forest that wolves had used for generations, marked with scent stones and maintained by tradition rather than human tools. Marguerite pushed herself hard, legs eating up the distance as sunrise painted the sky in shades of amber and rose. The forest smelled of pine and morning dew, of rabbit trails and fox dens, of the 1,000 small lives that existed in the spaces between packed territories. She thought about Clement as she ran. Thought about the first time they'd spoken. He'd been in the pack library, reading children's stories aloud to practice his pronunciation, and she'd stopped in the doorway to listen. His voice had been magic, each word carefully shaped, the old tales coming alive in ways she'd never heard before. When he'd noticed her standing there, he'd smiled, shy and uncertain, and asked if she knew any good stories about brave betas. She'd ended up sitting beside him for 3 hours, trading tales and laughter. Their friendship had grown slowly into something more. Stolen moments in the gardens after Basil fell asleep. Quiet conversations during pack gatherings, standing just a bit too close. The first time he'd kissed her, they'd been in the greenhouse during a rainstorm, surrounded by the scent of growing things and petrichor. He tasted like honey and hope. The exile had been brutal. The council had given him 2 hours to gather his belongings and leave the territory. Marguerite had tried to go to him, but Adelaide had held her back, gently, firmly, and explained that any public association would damage Marguerite's position, would potentially cost her the role as Basil's caretaker. You can't help him if you're exiled too, the Luna had said. So Marguerite had watched from a window as Clement walked away. His shoulders straight despite everything, carrying a single bag of possessions into the wilderness beyond pack protection. She'd cried for 3 days afterward. Then she'd locked the grief away and focused on Basil, because the toddler needed her and she couldn't afford to fall apart. But Basil had asked about Clement constantly. Where's Clem? When's Clem coming back? Why can't Clem teach me songs? And Marguerite had given the answers adults give children when the truth is too complicated. Clement had to go away. He's traveling. Maybe someday. Apparently, Basil had decided that someday was today. The borderlands appeared after 4 hours of hard running, a region between established pack territories where rogues and exiles congregated, where pack law held no authority. It was dangerous, lawless, a place where strength and cunning mattered more than rank or bloodline. Constance's trading post sat at the edge of the main settlement, a ramshackle building that served as neutral ground for business transactions. Marguerite transformed back to human form behind a stand of birch trees, her body aching from the long run. She dressed quickly in the spare clothes she'd carried and approached the trading post with caution. Constance was ancient, a grey wolf who'd been running the post for 40 years, her face weathered and scarred, her eyes sharp as broken glass. She looked up from counting coins when Marguerite entered. "Well," Constance said, her voice rough as gravel. "Didn't expect to see a Thornwood beta out here. You lost, girl. Looking for someone. Clement." He would have passed through about 6 months ago. Constance's expression flickered with something. Recognition, maybe concern. The pretty Omega with the forbidden bloodline. Yeah, he's here. Got himself a room above Harriet's tavern down the road. Works odd jobs, keeps to himself mostly. She leaned forward. What's Thornwood want with him now? Thought you folks made it clear he wasn't welcome. It's complicated, Marguerite said carefully. Always is. Constance jerked her head toward the door. Harriet's place is 3 buildings down, painted green. But girl, he's different now. Exile does things to wolves. Don't expect the same Omega you remember. The warning echoed Adelaide's words. Marguerite paid for the information with coins from her emergency pouch and headed down the dusty road. Harriet's tavern was exactly as described. Peeling green paint, rough wooden exterior, the smell of old beer and cooking meat drifting from inside. Marguerite climbed the external stairs to the 2nd floor and knocked on the door Harriet had indicated. Silence. Then footsteps. The door opened a crack, and Marguerite's breath caught. Clement looked haunted. His dark hair, which he'd always kept neat, now hung ragged around his face. His winter-storm eyes held shadows that hadn't been there before. He'd lost weight, his frame thinner beneath the worn shirt he wore. But when recognition hit, his expression crumbled into something between shock and pain. "Marguerite," he whispered. "Can I come in?" He hesitated, then stepped back. The room was sparse. A bed, a table, a single chair. Few personal belongings. The life of someone who'd learned not to gather things they might have to leave behind. They stood there, 2 feet apart, and the air between them felt like shattered glass. "Why are you here?" Clement asked finally. His voice had changed too. Harder, more careful, like he'd learned to guard every word. "Basil needs you," Marguerite said. "There's a ceremony tonight. His 3rd birthday. He's refusing to attend unless you're there." Clement's expression flickered through several emotions. Surprise, grief, and anger. "That's not possible. I'm exiled. Pack law. I have a temporary pardon." She pulled out the envelope and showed him Luna's seal. 6 hours of safe passage. You attend the ceremony, speak with Basil, then return here. No consequences. He stared at the envelope as if it might bite him. "This is a trap." "It's not. Adelaide and Remy authorized it themselves. Basil has been crying for hours. He won't eat, won't dress. He's locked in the nursery, demanding you." Marguerite took a careful step closer. "He doesn't understand why you left. He thinks you abandoned him." Pain crossed Clement's face. "I didn't abandon anyone. I was forced out. Exiled for bloodline crimes I didn't commit. For a rebellion that happened before I was born." His voice rose slightly. And where were you, Marguerite? When they dragged me before the council and stripped my rank. When they called me contaminated, dangerous, a threat to pack stability. You stood there and said nothing. The accusation hit like a physical blow. I couldn't risk your position, Clement finished bitterly. I know. Adelaide made that clear when she pulled you away. Told me herself that you had to think about Basil, about your future. That loving me was a luxury you couldn't afford. He turned away. So don't come here now with temporary pardons and talk about what the child needs. You made your choice 6 months ago. Marguerite felt tears burning. You think it was easy. You think I didn't fight. Did you? Clement spun back. Did you stand before the council and demand they reconsider? Did you threaten to leave the pack if they exiled me? Or did you accept their decision and move on because it was safer? I did what I had to do to survive. And I didn't. His voice broke. I've been living in this room for 6 months, Marguerite. Taking day labor jobs. Dealing with rogues who think omegas are easy prey. Trying to figure out how to exist without a pack. Do you know what it's like to be completely alone? To have no bonds, no protection, no certainty about tomorrow. He dragged a hand through his hair. I wake up every morning wondering if this is the day someone decides I'm worth robbing or worse. And you want me to walk back into Thornwood territory, into a room full of the wolves who exiled me, because a toddler is having a tantrum. He's not having a tantrum, Marguerite said quietly. He loves you. He talks about you constantly. Asks when you're coming back, why you had to leave. I've tried to explain, but he's 3 years old. He doesn't understand pack law or forbidden bloodlines. He just knows someone he cared about disappeared. Clement's shoulders sagged. Marguerite, I can't. Even with a pardon, walking into that ceremony. Seeing everyone who stood by while I was exiled, pretending everything is fine. I can't do that. Then do it for me, she said, the words raw. Because I never stopped loving you. Because every day without you has been agony. Because I'm here now, begging you to come back even if it's just for 6 hours, even if it destroys me all over again when you leave. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Please, Clement. I know I failed you. I know I should have done more. But please. The silence stretched between them, heavy and fragile. Clement's eyes were wet now, too, his careful walls cracking. 6 hours, he said finally. Then I'm gone. And Marguerite, when those 6 hours end, don't follow me again. Don't come back here. Let me go. The words felt like dying, but she nodded. They ran back to Thornwood together, side by side but separate. The afternoon sun tracked their progress, hours bleeding away as they covered the distance. Neither transformed fully, stayed in that in-between space where they could run on 2 legs, faster than human but not quite wolf. It felt like a metaphor for everything between them. Not one thing or another, caught in transition. They reached Thornwood territory as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. The pack house rose before them, a sprawling estate built from river stone and aged timber, surrounded by manicured grounds and protected by ancient wards. Wolves in formal attire moved across the lawns, preparing for the ceremony. Lanterns were being lit, tables arranged, the whole apparatus of pack celebration grinding into motion. Marguerite led Clement through a side entrance, avoiding the main gathering. They moved through service corridors until reaching the family wing, where Adelaide waited in a sitting room. The Luna looked up sharply when they entered. Her gaze fixed on Clement, and something complicated crossed her face. Relief, regret, calculation. Clement, she said formally. Thank you for returning. Luna. His voice was stiff, formal. I'm here for Basil. As requested. Of course. Adelaide gestured toward an inner door. He's in the nursery. Marguerite will take you. I need to speak with you both afterward, before the ceremony begins. Marguerite led Clement down a familiar hallway to the nursery, a bright room filled with toys and books and cushions. Basil sat in the corner surrounded by picture books, his small face blotchy from crying. He looked up when the door opened. For heartbeat, nothing. Then recognition blazed across the toddler's features. Clem! Basil launched himself across the room with all the coordination of an unsteady 3-year-old, barreling into Clement's legs. You came back. I knew you would. Clement dropped to his knees, catching the child, and Marguerite watched his carefully maintained walls shatter completely. He wrapped his arms around Basil and buried his face in the toddler's dark curls, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Hey, little wolf, Clement managed, his voice wrecked. I heard you were missing me. Missed you so much, Basil said, patting Clement's face with small hands. Where did you go? Why didn't you come back? Marguerite said you were traveling, but I wanted you here. I wanted you to teach me more songs. I know. I'm sorry. Clement pulled back enough to look at Basil properly. I had to go away for a while. But I'm here now, okay? I'm here for your ceremony. Don't leave again, Basil said seriously. Promise. Marguerite watched Clement's expression crack further. Basil, I promise. The toddler's voice took on that edge of potential tantrum. You have to promise, Clem. Friends promise. Your father needs to understand something, Clement said carefully, and Marguerite's heart broke at how gentle he was, how patient despite his own pain. Sometimes grown-ups have to go away even when we don't want to. It doesn't mean we don't love the people we leave behind. It just means life is complicated. But you love me? Basil asked, eyes wide. So much, Clement whispered. More than I can explain. Then stay. Simple, certain, the logic of a child who hadn't learned about impossible situations yet. Clement looked up at Marguerite, helpless. She knelt beside them. Basil, she said gently. Clement can stay for the ceremony. Can stay for tonight. But then he has to go back to where he's living now. That's the agreement. No. Basil's face crumpled. That's not fair. He just got here. I know it's not fair, Marguerite said. But sometimes things aren't fair, even when we wish they were different. Basil looked between them, his small face working through emotions he didn't have words for yet. Finally, he grabbed both their hands. Then we stay together until you have to go. All of us. Together. And how could they refuse that? How could they explain pack law and forbidden bloodlines and political necessity to a 3-year-old who only understood love and presence? They couldn't. So they nodded and let Basil pull them down onto the cushions, chattering excitedly about everything that had happened in 6 months, showing them his drawings and new books, performing the songs he'd learned. For an hour, they existed in a bubble where the outside world didn't matter, where pack law and exile were distant concerns, where they were just 3 people who loved each other being together. Then Adelaide appeared in the doorway. It's time, she said quietly. The ceremony space had been transformed. The pack's great hall glittered with candlelight and ceremonial decorations. Pack members filled the space, ranked wolves in formal attire, their scents mingling into a complex tapestry of hierarchy and relationship. At the center, a raised platform held the Alpha's throne and the Luna's seat. Between them, a smaller chair for the heir. Marguerite stood with Clement at the room's edge, both of them in borrowed formal clothes. Basil had insisted on holding both their hands as he was led to the platform, only releasing them when Remy lifted him onto the small throne. The ceremony began with traditional elements, the recitation of pack lineage, the acknowledgement of the heir's growth, and the presentation of symbolic gifts from ranked members. Marguerite tried to focus on the proceedings, but she was hyper-aware of Clement beside her, of the way wolves kept glancing their way with poorly concealed curiosity and suspicion. Then Counselor Theodora rose to speak. She was ancient, her authority in the pack rivaling even Remy's in some matters. Her eyes, sharp as a hawk's, swept the assembled wolves before landing on Clement. I see we have an unexpected guest, Theodora said, her voice carrying easily across the silent hall. An exile returned to pack lands. The temperature in the room dropped. Remy stood smoothly from his throne. Clement has been granted a temporary pardon by Luna, Adelaide and me, the Alpha said, his voice brooking no argument. He is here at the heir's request and under our protection. Curious, Theodora said, not backing down. That we would bend the pack law for a child's whim. That we would allow contaminated bloodlines back into our territory, even temporarily. She turned to address the room. The council exiled this Omega for good reason. His lineage connects to the Shadowfen rebellion. His presence here endangers every ranked wolf in this hall. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Marguerite felt Clement tense beside her. Counselor Theodora, Adelaide said, standing now as well. We are not relitigating the exile. Clement is here for tonight only. Then we'll return beyond our borders. This matter is closed. Is it? Theodora's gaze was poisonous. Because I wonder what message this sends. That pack law can be circumvented if one simply makes a child cry. That the council's decisions mean nothing if the Luna disapproves. She gestured toward Clement. This Omega was exiled for the safety of our pack. For the stability of our hierarchy. Allowing him back, even for hours, suggests that safety and stability are negotiable. Enough. Remy's voice cracked like a whip. You overstep, counselor. But Theodora wasn't finished. The council demands answers, Alpha. Why is this exile truly here? What information does he supposedly carry that required his return? Her smile was sharp as knives. Or perhaps the Luna has grown sentimental. Perhaps she values her son's comfort over pack security. The accusation hung in the air. Adelaide's expression went very cold. My son, she said quietly, dangerously, is the heir to this pack. His emotional stability, his sense of security and trust, these things matter to our future leadership. If Counselor Theodora believes that teaching our heir that love is disposable, that pack loyalty means abandoning those we care for without explanation, then perhaps she should reconsider her position on the council. The hall erupted into whispers. Challenges between Luna and council were rare, potentially catastrophic. Marguerite watched the power dynamics shift and slide, alliances reforming in real time. Theodora's eyes narrowed. The Luna suggests the council's decision was wrong. The Luna suggests, Adelaide said, each word precisely carved, that exile for bloodline alone, without evidence of actual wrongdoing or disloyalty, is a perversion of pack law. That judging wolves for the actions of ancestors they never knew is injustice masquerading as safety. She descended from the platform, moving to stand beside Clement. Clement served this pack faithfully for 2 years. He cared for our children, contributed to our community, and harmed no one. And we cast him out because his great-grandmother was born in the wrong pack. Her voice rose, addressing the entire hall now. If that is justice, then we have lost our way. The silence was absolute. Every wolf in the hall understood what was happening. The Luna was publicly challenging the council's authority, potentially destabilizing the entire pack hierarchy. Remy looked torn between supporting his mate and maintaining political order. Then Basil's voice cut through the tension. Clem didn't do anything bad, the toddler said from his small throne. His voice high and certain. He's my friend. Friends aren't bad. The simple statement, delivered with 3-year-old conviction, hit like a thunderbolt. Several wolves made sounds of surprise or approval. Theodora's expression darkened. The heir is a child, she said. He doesn't understand. He understands loyalty, Adelaide interrupted. He understands love. Perhaps those are the lessons we should prioritize over political paranoia. Counselor Bertram stood, another ancient wolf, his position on the council secured through decades of service. Luna Adelaide, your passion for this matter is noted. But the council's decision regarding Clement was made through proper channels, following established pack law. To overturn it now would require a formal challenge to council authority, Theodora finished, which would destabilize the pack at a critical time, with tensions rising in the Eastern Territories and other packs watching for any sign of weakness. Her smile was triumphant. So the Luna must choose, protect this Omega's feelings, or protect her pack's stability. She cannot have both. Marguerite felt Clement's hand find hers in the shadows. His fingers were ice-cold. Adelaide stood very still, the weight of the moment visible in every line of her body. Then she looked at Remy, something passing between them, a conversation in glances, in the language of mates who'd bonded for over a decade. Remy stood, his alpha presence filling the hall. "The council's decision stands," he said, and Marguerite felt Clement flinch beside her. "Clement's exile will not be overturned tonight." Theodora's smile widened. But Remy wasn't finished. "However," the alpha continued, "the council will convene tomorrow to discuss the broader question the Luna raises, whether our laws regarding forbidden bloodlines serve justice or merely perpetuate ancient prejudices. Every ranked wolf will have the opportunity to speak. Arguments will be heard, evidence presented. And at the end of that discussion, we will vote on whether such exiles should continue to be pack policy." The hall erupted into shocked murmurs. Theodora's expression went from triumphant to furious. "Alpha Remy, you cannot." "I can and I will," Remy said, his voice harder than stone. "The Luna has raised a legitimate concern. Our heir has demonstrated that even children recognize the difference between law and justice. Tomorrow we will determine if our pack laws reflect our values or our fears." He looked down at Basil, who was watching with wide, uncertain eyes. "But tonight is not about politics or bloodlines or ancient rebellions. Tonight is about celebrating my son's 3rd year of life. Tonight we honor the next generation." His gaze swept the hall. "Any wolf who wishes to continue debating pack law can leave now. Everyone else will join me in the ceremony." It was a masterful move, reframing the conflict while avoiding immediate resolution, giving both sides room to retreat without losing face. Theodora looked ready to argue further, but Councillor Bertram placed a hand on her arm, shaking his head slightly. She sat down, rigid with anger. The ceremony resumed, but the atmosphere had fundamentally changed. Every word spoken, every ritual performed now carried extra weight, loaded with the knowledge that tomorrow would bring a reckoning. Marguerite and Clement remained at the edge of the hall, hands still clasped in the shadows. She could feel him trembling. "Hey," she whispered. "Breathe." "They hate me," he said, so quietly only she could hear. "You heard them. I'm contaminated, dangerous. Even if the vote goes against the council, even if they overturn the bloodline laws, there will always be wolves who believe I shouldn't exist in their territory. Not all of them." Marguerite squeezed his hand. "You heard Adelaide. Heard Remy. They're fighting for you. They're fighting for the principle," Clement corrected. "For their son's lesson in justice. Not for me specifically." His voice cracked. "And even if they win, Marguerite, do you understand what they're asking? They're suggesting I come back. Return to a pack where half the council wants me gone, where wolves like Theodora will watch my every move, waiting for me to prove their prejudices right. That's not mercy. That's torture with a prettier name." Before Marguerite could respond, the ceremony reached its conclusion. Basil was presented with symbolic gifts from the pack, a carved wolf figure from Bertram, a silver bracelet from Theodora, given with poor grace, books and toys from other ranked wolves. When Adelaide brought Basil down from the platform, the toddler immediately ran to Clement. "Did you see?" Basil asked excitedly. "Did you see all my presents?" "I saw," Clement said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "You were very brave up there." "Stay for cake," Basil demanded, grabbing Clement's hand. "You have to stay for cake. Mama said there's chocolate." "I'll stay for cake," Clement promised. They moved to the reception area where tables groaned under the weight of food and desserts. Basil planted himself between Clement and Marguerite, chattering away about everything and nothing while they ate. Other wolves gave them a wide berth, some curious, some disapproving, a few sympathetic. Harriet approached after a while, an older beta who'd always been kind to Marguerite. "That was quite a scene in there," she said quietly, settling beside them. Adelaide really went to bat for you, Clement. I noticed, Clement said neutrally. Theodora won't forget it, Harriet continued. She's been on the council for 30 years, and she doesn't like being challenged publicly. Tomorrow's debate is going to be brutal. I won't be here for it, Clement said. My pardon expires in 3 hours. Harriet looked surprised. You're not staying for the vote. Why would I? Clement's voice held an edge. So I can watch the pack debate whether I'm worthy of basic dignity. So I can sit there while wolves who've never spoken to me argue about whether my bloodline makes me dangerous. He shook his head. I've had enough humiliation for one lifetime. But if they vote to overturn the bloodline laws, then someone else with forbidden lineage might have an easier time in the future, Clement said. Good for them. But I'm done with Thornwood. Marguerite felt something crumbling inside her chest. She'd hoped foolishly that tonight might change things. That seeing Basil, seeing the pack divided over his exile, might make Clement want to fight for his place here. But she could see it in his eyes. He'd already let go. Already accepted that this pack would never truly be home again. Basil, oblivious to the adult tension, finished his cake and declared he wanted to dance. The pack had started music, traditional drums and strings, and couples were moving onto the ceremonial floor. Basil grabbed both Clement and Marguerite's hands and dragged them into the space. They danced in a small circle, the toddler laughing as they spun him between them. For a few minutes it was almost normal. Almost like they were a family, celebrating together without the weight of exile and pack law pressing down on them. Then the song ended and reality crashed back in. Time for bed, little wolf, Adelaide said, appearing to collect her son. Basil's face crumpled. No, Clem just got here. I want more time. You've had time, Adelaide said gently. And Clement needs to leave soon. But you'll see him tomorrow. No, he won't, Clement said quietly. My pardon expires soon, Luna. I'll be returning to the borderlands tonight. Adelaide's expression flickered with something that might have been regret. The vote tomorrow. I hope it goes well, Clement said. I hope future wolves with forbidden bloodlines don't face what I faced. But I won't be attending. Clement, Adelaide started, but he shook his head. Thank you for allowing me to see Basil. To give him closure. But I need to leave now, before my time runs out. Basil began crying in earnest now, big tears rolling down his cheeks as he reached for Clement. No. Don't go. Stay, stay, stay. Clement knelt down one final time, cupping the toddler's face gently. You're going to be an amazing alpha someday, Basil. You're already so brave, so kind. Don't let anyone make you harder than you need to be, okay? His voice broke. Remember that love matters. That protecting people you care about matters. Even when it's complicated. I love you, Clem, Basil sobbed. I love you too, little wolf. So much. Clement kissed the child's forehead, then stood quickly, turning toward the exit before anyone could see him fully break down. Marguerite moved to follow, but Adelaide caught her arm. Let me, the Luna said quietly. You stay with Basil. He needs you now. So Marguerite watched Clement walk away again, just like 6 months ago, just like every nightmare she'd had since. Watched him disappear through the doorway, Adelaide following in his wake. And she gathered the crying toddler into her arms, rocking him gently while her own heart shattered. Adelaide caught up with Clement in the corridor leading to the eastern exit. Wait, she called. He stopped but didn't turn around. Luna, please don't make this harder. I'm not trying to. Adelaide moved to stand in front of him, forcing him to meet her eyes. I'm trying to apologize. For standing by 6 months ago. For not fighting harder for you then. For putting pack politics ahead of what was right. You had to, Clement said tiredly. You explained that. You were protecting Basil's future, your position. I understand. Understanding doesn't mean forgiving, Adelaide said. And you shouldn't forgive me. I made a choice to protect my son at your expense. And you paid the price for my cowardice. She pulled something from her robes, a sealed envelope, thicker than the first. This is a formal petition to the council, signed by me and Remy. It requests a full review of your case, with the possibility of reinstating your rank and pack membership if the bloodline laws are overturned. Clement stared at the envelope but didn't take it. What's the point? Even if they vote to change the laws, even if I'm technically allowed back. You heard Theodora. Heard the whispers. Half the pack thinks I'm dangerous. The other half sees me as the Omega who made their Luna publicly challenge the council. I'd be living under constant scrutiny, constant suspicion. Yes, Adelaide agreed. It would be hard. Probably the hardest thing you'd ever done. But you'd have allies. Myself. Remy, Marguerite. Others who believe the bloodline laws are unjust. She pressed the envelope into his hands. I'm not asking you to decide tonight. Take this back to the borderlands. Think about it. And if you decide to come back for the vote tomorrow, you'll have our protection. And if I don't come back? Adelaide's expression softened with genuine sadness. Then I'll tell Basil that you loved him enough to let him grow up without the pain of watching you suffer. That sometimes the bravest thing is walking away from places that hurt us. She hesitated. And I'll tell Marguerite the same thing, though I doubt it will comfort her much. Clement looked down at the envelope, his hands trembling. She stayed silent too. When they exiled me. She did, Adelaide acknowledged. And she's hated herself for it every day since. But Clement, she's a beta without rank or political power. Speaking up wouldn't have changed the council's decision. It would have just gotten her exiled alongside you. She met his eyes. Is that what you would have wanted? Both of you cast out, struggling to survive in the borderlands together. At least we'd have been together, Clement whispered. Maybe. Or maybe you'd have grown to resent each other. Maybe the bitterness of exile would have poisoned what you had. Adelaide stepped back. I can't tell you what's right, Clement. No one can. All I can offer is the chance to fight for a different future. The choice is yours. She left him standing there, holding the envelope. His future compressed into paper and official seals. Clement made his way to the eastern exit alone. The night air hit him like a blessing, cool and clean after the suffocating atmosphere of the packhouse. He transformed smoothly, clothes and envelope secured in his jaw pouch, and began running. But he only made it half a mile before he collapsed. The grief hit all at once, 6 months of careful control shattering under the weight of tonight. He transformed back to human and sobbed into his hands, great wrenching sounds that echoed through the empty forest. All the pain he'd locked away, all the loneliness and fear and desperate longing, it all came pouring out. He'd loved Thornwood, had finally found a place where he felt he belonged, where his Omega nature wasn't seen as weakness, where he could use his voice and his gentleness to help others. He'd loved teaching Basil songs, reading to the pack children, and maintaining the library. He'd loved the gardens and the forest paths and the way sunrise looked through the packhouse windows. And he'd loved Marguerite with an intensity that terrified him. She'd made him feel seen in ways no one else ever had. Made him believe he could be valued for who he was, not what his designation or bloodline demanded. Then it had all been ripped away. 6 months of exile had taught him that wolves without packs existed in a permanent state of vulnerability. That every day was a negotiation with danger, every interaction weighted with potential threat. He'd learned to sleep lightly, to trust no one, to keep his Omega nature carefully hidden because unmated Omegas were targets. And now Adelaide was offering him a chance to come back. To fight for his place in a pack that had already rejected him once. To potentially watch them reject him again, publicly, with even more humiliation. The smart choice was obvious. Stay away. Build a life in the borderlands. Maybe find a smaller pack eventually. Somewhere his bloodline wouldn't matter. Forget Thornwood, forget Basil, forget Marguerite. Forget everything that had ever made him happy. Clement pulled out the envelope and opened it by moonlight. Inside was the formal petition Adelaide had mentioned, along with a personal letter. He recognized Remy's handwriting immediately. Clement, I failed you as an alpha. I knew the bloodline laws were unjust, had argued against them in previous council sessions. But when it came time to stand firm, I yielded to political pressure. I told myself I was protecting pack stability, that 1 Omega wasn't worth destabilizing the entire hierarchy. I was wrong. My son has taught me something these past 6 months. He asks about you constantly, draws pictures of you, cries because he doesn't understand why good people leave. And I realized that what we teach our children through our actions matters more than any law or tradition. If you return tomorrow, I cannot guarantee the vote will go in your favor. Theodora has a significant influence, and many wolves fear change. But I can guarantee that Adelaide and I will fight for you with everything we have. That we will not stand silent again. The choice is yours. No judgment either way. Alpha Remy Thornwood. Beneath Remy's letter was another shorter note in Adelaide's elegant script. Marguerite loves you. She didn't say so tonight, but I see it every day in how she moves through the packhouse like a ghost, going through motions without joy. In how she holds Basil and tells him stories about you, keeping your memory alive. She made a terrible choice 6 months ago. So did I. So did Remy. We all failed you. Come back and let us try to do better. Clement folded the letters carefully and sat in the darkness, listening to the forest sounds around him. An owl hooted nearby. Small creatures rustled through the underbrush. The moon tracked slowly across the sky. Finally, as dawn approached, he made his decision. The council chamber was packed when Clement arrived the next morning. He'd spent the night running back to Thornwood, had transformed outside the territory borders, and dressed in his least worn clothes. Now he stood at the back of the chamber, anonymous in the crowd of wolves gathered to witness the debate. Marguerite spotted him immediately. Her sharp intake of breath carried across the room, and their eyes met for one suspended moment. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept. He probably looked worse. The council sat at a raised table, Theodora at the center, flanked by Bertram and 5 other ranked wolves. Remy and Adelaide stood before them, presenting their case for overturning the bloodline laws. The fundamental injustice, Remy was saying, is judging wolves for ancestry they had no control over. Clement was born decades after the Shadowfen rebellion. He had no connection to those events, no involvement in the attempted uprising. Yet he carries the punishment for his great-grandmother's pack affiliation. The bloodline laws exist to prevent infiltration, Theodora countered. To ensure that wolves with potential loyalty to disbanded or rebel packs cannot gain rank within our territories. These laws have kept us safe for 40 years. Safe from what? Adelaide asked sharply. From Omegas who care for our children. From wolves who contribute positively to our community. Or safe from acknowledging that we've built our security on institutionalized prejudice. Bertram raised a hand. Luna Adelaide, the council understands your passion. But changing these laws would set a precedent. If we allow wolves from forbidden bloodlines to hold rank, to remain in territories without question, what message does that send to other packs? What about wolves with bloodlines connecting to the Dark Moon Massacre? Or the Western Pack Wars? Then we judge them as individuals, Remy said. Based on their actions, their character, their loyalty to the pack they choose. Not on blood they didn't choose. The debate raged for hours. Wolves stood to speak, some supporting the Alpha and Luna, others defending the existing laws. Arguments ranged from passionate to vicious. Clement listened to wolves he'd never met debate his worthiness to exist in their territory. Then Marguerite stepped forward. The chamber went quiet. Betas rarely spoke in council debates, and Marguerite's position as the heir's caretaker made her voice particularly significant. "Councillors," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor Clement could hear underneath. "I want to speak about what these bloodline laws cost us. Not in abstract political terms, but in concrete daily reality." She took a breath. 6 months ago, I watched a wolf I love be exiled. I stood silent because I was afraid afraid of losing my position, afraid of being cast out alongside him. I made the safe choice. And that choice has hollowed me out. Because every day I lie to the heir about why Clement left. Every day, I watch Basil cry for someone who loved him and was loved in return. Someone who did nothing wrong except be born with the wrong bloodline. Every day I teach that child that pack law matters more than love, more than loyalty, more than recognizing goodness when it's standing right in front of you. Tears were streaming down her face now. If we keep these laws, we're teaching our children that safety means exclusion. That protecting ourselves requires punishing innocent wolves for their ancestors' choices. Is that the pack we want to build? Is that the future we want for the next generation? She turned to face Theodora directly. Counselor, you said Clement's presence endangers every ranked wolf in this hall. But the only danger I've seen is the danger of becoming so afraid of hypothetical threats that we destroy real, present goodness. That we sacrifice compassion for the illusion of absolute security. Marguerite stepped back, her piece said. The chamber erupted into discussion. Clement's hands were shaking. She'd done it. Done what he'd needed 6 months ago, publicly challenged the council, risked her position for him. But it was Theodora's next words that changed everything. The beta speaks eloquently, the counselor said, her voice cold. But she's not objective. She's emotionally compromised, in love with the exiled Omega. Her testimony is biased and should be disregarded. My testimony is true, Marguerite shot back. And yes, I love Clement. I loved him 6 months ago when I stayed silent, and I love him now when I'm speaking up. That doesn't make my words less valid. It makes them more urgent. Theodora stood, her presence commanding immediate attention. The council will vote. All in favor of maintaining the bloodline laws as currently written, raise your hand. 4 hands went up. Theodora's, 2 other conservative members, and after a hesitation Bertram's. All opposed. 3 hands rose from the more progressive council members. The vote is split, Theodora announced. 4-3 in favor of maintaining current policy. The bloodline laws stand. Clement's exile remains in effect. The finality hit like a physical blow. Clement felt the last fragile hope crumble. They'd tried. Remy, Adelaide, Marguerite, they'd all tried. And it hadn't been enough. He turned to leave, but Remy's voice stopped him. Wait, the Alpha commanded. The vote was 4-3. But in cases of split council decisions, the Alpha holds the tie-breaking authority. Theodora's expression went very still. Alpha Remy, you're suggesting. I'm exercising my authority, Remy said, his voice ringing through the chamber. The bloodline laws, as currently written, are hereby suspended pending a complete revision. No wolf will be exiled solely for ancestral connections to disbanded packs. All cases must be judged on individual merit and demonstrated threat. You're overruling the council, Theodora said, fury evident. I'm fulfilling my duty as Alpha to protect all pack members, not just those with approved bloodlines. Remy's gaze swept the chamber. This decision is effective immediately. Clement's exile is overturned. He is welcome to return to Thornwood with full restoration of his previous rank and privileges. The chamber exploded. Wolves shouted arguments. Theodora began a furious tirade about Alpha overreach, and Adelaide moved to stand beside her mate in solidarity. Through all the chaos, Clement stood frozen. Then Marguerite was there, pushing through the crowd, grabbing his hands. You came back, she whispered. You came back for the vote. I couldn't stay away, he admitted. Couldn't let you all fight alone. The exile is overturned. You can come home. Her grip tightened. Come home, Clement. Please. He looked around at the chaos, at Theodora's rage, at the wolves arguing, at the pack fracturing over his existence. Marguerite, did you hear them? Half the council voted against me. Theodora and her supporters will make my life miserable. Every day will be a battle. Then we'll fight it together, she said fiercely. I'm done being quiet. Done choosing safety over what's right. If they want to challenge you, they'll have to go through me. Through both of us, Adelaide said, appearing beside them. Remy joined her, his presence solid and unmovable. Through all of us, came Harriet's voice from the crowd. Other wolves stepped forward. Not all of them, not even most, but enough. Enough to show Clement he wouldn't face the hostility alone. Basil burst into the chamber then, escaping from whoever was supposed to be watching him. His small face lighting up when he saw Clement. "Clem, you're still here. Papa said you could stay forever now." Forever. The word hung in the air, weighted with possibility and terror. Clement looked at the wolves gathered around him, at Marguerite with tears streaming down her face, at Adelaide and Remy standing firm despite the political cost, at Basil reaching up with absolute trust, at the pack fracturing and reforming around the question of his worthiness. "I'll stay," he said quietly. Then louder so the whole chamber could hear. "I'll stay and prove that bloodlines don't determine loyalty. That wolves can be judged by their choices, not their ancestors." Theodora's voice cut through the celebration. "This isn't over, Alpha Remy. The council will adapt," Remy said firmly. "Or it will be reformed with members who understand that justice requires courage, not comfort." As the chamber slowly cleared, arguments still raging in pockets, Clement found himself alone with Marguerite in a quiet corner. "I'm sorry," she said again. "For staying silent. For not being braver." "We were both trying to survive," Clement said. "Both making impossible choices. But Marguerite, if we try this again, I need you to promise that next time you'll speak up. That you won't protect your position at the cost of us." "I promise," she whispered. "Never again." He pulled her close, breathing in her familiar scent, feeling her solid and real against him. "This is going to be hard. Theodora isn't going to stop fighting. There will be wolves who never accept me." "I know," Marguerite said. "But hard doesn't mean impossible." Behind them, Basil had found his parents and was chattering excitedly about Clement staying. Beyond the windows, the sun tracked toward afternoon, painting everything in shades of gold. The future stretched ahead, uncertain and difficult, and weighted with the knowledge that some battles never truly end. They just shift shape, requiring new courage for new challenges. But for now, Clement was home, surrounded by wolves who'd chosen to fight for him, holding the woman he loved, watching the heir who'd refused to let him go celebrate with innocent joy. It wasn't the ending he'd imagined 6 months ago, broken and exiled. It wasn't even the ending he'd hoped for last night, running through darkness with Adelaide's letters pressed against his heart. It was something harder, more complex, laced with the certainty that Theodora would find new ways to challenge him, that some pack members would never fully trust him, that every day would require him to prove his worth. But it was also something precious, the chance to build a life not despite his bloodline, but alongside wolves who believed bloodlines shouldn't define destinies. As evening approached and the pack slowly returned to normal routines, as Basil finally tired and fell asleep in Marguerite's arms, still clutching Clement's hand, as Adelaide and Remy dealt with the political fallout behind closed doors, a messenger arrived at the packhouse gates. The wolf carried urgent news from the Eastern Territories. Reports of pack movements, of alliances shifting, of rumors that someone was gathering wolves with forbidden bloodlines together, building something new. And in the message, a name that made everyone in the room go still. Theodora's younger brother, exiled 20 years ago for his own bloodline complications. Now, apparently leading this new movement. The implications crashed down like thunder. Theodora's vehement opposition to overturning the bloodline laws suddenly looked less like principle and more like fear. Fear that if wolves with forbidden ancestry gained acceptance, they might start asking dangerous questions about council members who'd hidden their own complicated lineages, who'd built their power on the very laws they'd enforced against others. Remy looked at the message, then at Adelaide, then at Clement. "It seems," he said quietly, "that this is only the beginning of a much larger story." And as night fell over Thornwood, as wolves gathered to discuss this new threat, As alliances reformed and old secrets prepared to surface, Clement stood at the window with Marguerite beside him, watching the moon rise over the territory he'd thought he'd lost forever. The future was uncertain, dangerous, filled with conflicts that would test everything he believed about pack, loyalty, and justice. But he was no longer facing it alone. And sometimes that's where the real story begins.